Hello, I'm Joe Ruggiero, and welcome to my podcast, Inspired, and the people who inspire me. And today, I just love this lady, but we go way, way back, and she has some very, very interesting stories to tell, especially about the New York editorial design scene. I have the pleasure of presenting Beverly McGuire Schnurr, and welcome.
Oh, thank you, Joe. Thank you for including me in your stellar cast of friends here on this
Well, it should be
session.
called Joe Ruggiero and Friends because I have just had the wonderful experiences. And as you said, many of our friendships really emanated from our editorial experiences.
Exactly. The jobs have just produced tremendous friendships, lifelong friendships that I all met through work, through
Right.
various magazines.
Well, I want to hear about your childhood. And you were raised in Okinawa.
Yes, exactly. My father had been stationed in the Philippines during the war, and afterwards he saw a business opportunity on Okinawa, which was nothing but a military base, and he was the first commercial American businessman to go into business on the island. He moved my mother and sister over there in 1947 and started the Byerly's non-carbonated soft drink
Wow.
bottling business.
That's interesting because I would think that it was a military environment but you did play with military kids.
Well, at school, the majority of the kids were all in the military, and we were different because we lived behind the bottling plant that my father built, and all the soft drinks were made right there on our property, and it was a family business. He brought his two brothers in from Memphis, and his business partners were Chinese brothers, so it really was a family group and organization.
Well, that's interesting. Now, did you go back to do any photo shoots in Japan, or?
No, I've gone back to visit as an adult, and actually I went back to Okinawa in 2014 with some cousins as the bottling plant was being shut down for good, and they had sold the name to Asahi.
Right.
So it's still produced today, but not the same.
Well, I want to hear a little bit about the New York design scheme. And you had originally thought you were going to go into fashion.
Exactly. I was a commercial art major in college in Memphis, but I had my sights set on New York City, and I got accepted at FIT, where I saw there were different kinds of jobs in fashion-related businesses, and I got my first job at a magazine.
Now, for our listeners, because we do have some youngsters listening who are interested in going into the design editorial business, do you have any advice or?
Well, I found at a specialized school like FIT that there were classes that taught me much more than just what I would assume fashion was all about. And so a specialized school like that for interiors or architecture or fashion would be the way to go. So you get a concentrated method with experts in that field.
And I have a granddaughter that's doing the same thing, but she's going to do it in Italy, which I think is great. Of course, a little bit of Italian culture never hurt anyone, said he with the name Ruggiero. But I want to hear about the magazines that you worked for because it's a pretty impressive group.
Well, I had my first job at Ladies' Home Journal as an assistant fashion editor. And my favorite part of the job was being on set, on either in the photographer studios or on location, where we could make things happen for photography. And there was a lot of behind-the-scenes work that happened before we got to the photo shoot days, but that was my favorite part. And I eventually segued into home furnishings and had a stepping stone job at Modern Bride for 2 years.
Oh.
And there, Joanne Barwick from House Beautiful had seen me, and she was setting up a new staff when she arrived at House Beautiful. So I went over there and stayed for 22 years with that magazine. So
And then you had this idea you wanted to go west.
exactly, to come to California, and still maintain my ties in New York. So I was able to still freelance for House Beautiful and other magazines. I was their West Coast liaison.
And that took you to classic homes or
Yes,
colonial homes?
various Hearst publications like Country Living. I would work for Rachel Newman, and Classic and Colonial Homes. I would work for Jason Contos, and various magazines. So
Let's talk about your love for Hawaii. And you did an interesting project in Hawaii talking about historic Hawaiian homes.
yes, I brought in an idea of the historic museum homes that exist on Hawaii, and I pitched the story, and it was accepted. And so the photographer was the late great John Vaughn.
Oh, yes.
And he had ties to Hawaii because his parents had a avocado farm.
I didn't
there.
know that.
And so we traveled we picked out, there were 7 houses that we photographed on 4 different islands in 8 days. So we were hopping from island to island and photographing, but I developed a love for the history and the real deep meaning of the Hawaiian design culture.
Now, you as a kid coming from Japan would spend your summers in Hawaii?
Exactly. Back then there were prop planes that had to stop in Hawaii anyway. So, and my father's company had an office in Honolulu, so that was part of the summer to go to Hawaii to and from Memphis. So we were back and
Now, you
forth.
also befriended an expert in Hawaiian design when you worked on the Bette Midler project.
Exactly. I had seen a picture of Bette Midler's beach house in Laguna Beach, California, and the designer is named Neil Korpinen. And I had pitched that story to House Beautiful and went and photographed the home, which was done it was a wonderful 1920s house that the decorating was done in sort of the vintage classic Hawaiian style.
Which I love.
And it just spoke to me, and I bonded with the designer. We became very good friends, and when I later needed someone to help me with my home, he actually built some custom furniture for me out in a particular tropical modern style. And so we've maintained our friendship, started as a business communication and became a deep friendship.
Well, you still have a tropical corner in your penthouse.
I do. I have I have one bathroom that is completely covered floor to ceiling in Hawaiiana.
Wow.
But I have touches of that tropical influence throughout my home.
Now,
And
let's talk a little bit about that penthouse, because I had the pleasure of seeing it, and I think it's extremely charming. And I love the way you have your exercise corner with its own terrace.
Well, the beauty of this place is that it has a very unusual wraparound terrace. The deck is so large that when I have all the floor-to-ceiling shades up, it looks like I have twice as much space. And it leads out to, I face southwest, so I see the sunsets, and I also see the lights of the Hollywood Hills.
Well, I think that California, being the weather that it is, it's really fortunate to have the size terrace that you have.
Exactly.
Because it's unusual.
This
really.
in this particular building, it is unusual that the size. I've had many people and many realtors come in and say they've not seen that size of a deck before. So
Right.
I lucked out. It was a lucky chance. And
Now, for decorating yourself, you are very modest because you say, oh, you've had some great help. But you are the final word. And I love your color palette. It's always cheery. And I love your mix of styles.
Well,
Where did that come from?
Well, I've always mixed, they call it high-low, but I just always mixed it with, I had some family antiques, and then I bought some ultra-modern pieces, and then in between collected some mid-century treasures. And I do have a graphic eye, and I know how I want things to look and how to feel. So I think it's come together as a pretty good mix of it's simple, clean, but it's got a lot of flavor in the corners and
you
personality.
love to entertain,
Yes,
too.
yes.
And what's your secret of entertaining?
Well,
Keep it simple.
Well, I call Pan Quotidien and have them cater it. But what's nice is I think, at my housewarming party that you came to, I started in the late afternoon so that evening people could watch the sun go down and the lights come up in the hills. And the end of the party was very moody. It was nice just to have the change from the afternoon to the evening. And that's what's so special about this spot.
Well, I have a funny story to tell you about my wife. She loves to entertain, but she's not a good cook. I hope she's not listening. She's a good cook, but she doesn't like to cook. So we had invited guests, and they came in, and one of the guests admitted to this day that he thought it was unusual because he couldn't smell anything cooking in the kitchen. And all of a sudden, the front door bell rang, bing bong, and Barbara very graciously got up and said, "Dinner is served." And in came this wonderful Chinese dinner that she had ordered, and she had it beautifully set up in chinoiserie plates and whatever. But that's the way she entertained, and I always laugh about that because I have a daughter that loves to entertain and cook from scratch. I mean, she has a potager, a vegetable garden in her backyard, and she really enjoys it. So it came from my mother, not my wife, but isn't that interesting? Now, I really want you to share with my listeners the funny story of styling and the bubble story, which I think is hilarious. It reminds me of I Love Lucy.
It was. Well, when in the olden days, the editors would go on photo shoots and everything was hands-on. We did everything ourselves. I mean, the editors would arrive with the truck full of props and flowers and unpack, and we had everything on our mind. We had to style the sets, art direct the shots, hold hands with the homeowner, keep the decorator happy, and we had a lot of things going, and you had to think on your feet and come up with really quick creative ideas sometimes to solve a problem that you just did not expect. And we were in a house that was a kind of a dark woody barn, and they had so we were trying to lighten it up as much as we could with throws and pillows and flowers. And there was a big red whirlpool tub that was just so dark. And I said, we need bubbles. And it was red, and the walls were dark wood. So I said, we need bubbles. We need to lighten this up. So in a hurry, I grabbed some laundry detergent, and we put it in and turned on the whirlpool. And suddenly we had these beautiful bubbles. They just like in just picture perfect, like in a cartoon. Well, with the whirlpool tub running, the bubbles got bigger and bigger and higher, and they were going up to the ceiling. And then we heard hollering from downstairs, and bubbles were coming out through all the toilets and sinks on the lower level.
Oh, no.
They had gotten into the main line of the house, and the whole house was like bubblicious. And then I had to clean it up because I was responsible. And that was one of those moments. That was a blooper.
Well, I love it. And I can remember a story with names that will not be used, but she was an editor on site with me at Hubert de Givenchy's home, Le Janger, in the Loire Valley. And we were so privileged to be there. And he had done beautiful flower arrangements, and he had done tablescapes and styled them and whatever. Well, the editor said that it wasn't really what she had in mind for the room. So Hubert very graciously offered his driver to take her to Paris and buy what she thought was appropriate and bring it back to the house. Meanwhile, my assistant, who I had just hired, we went out to lunch, and he said, "Oh no, Joe, I'll stay here." And we thought he was going to just guide everything and guard it. And when we came back, he had completely rearranged Hubert's tablescape because he said, "You don't want all that mess." I was so embarrassed. I just couldn't believe it. And then we had to reconstruct it all, because I think that Hubert has the superb taste of anyone, and a very, very nice guy.
Oh,
That's
goodness.
my little story, my blooper story.
Well,
So,
those
what
things
was it
happen.
like making the transition as a 10-year-old from Japan to Memphis?
Well, it was something that I looked forward to because our life on Okinawa was isolated and we lived behind the bottling plant. So I didn't have children around me. There were a lot of animals and the gardener and
I'm thinking Shirley Temple.
practically. And there was an idea that when I went to the United States, there'd be lots of children who lived on the same street and they would have sidewalks. I mean, to me, that was just intriguing because we were really in a very rural place. So it was different. It was very different. And of course, my father right away put my sister and I in the best girls' school in Memphis, which was a boarding school, and because he thought we were like heathens from living on this tropical island, and he wanted us to be young ladies. So I got plopped into Lausanne School for Girls.
And that lasted how many years?
Well, until college.
Uh-huh.
So
Now, was your mother creative or your father creative? Or
my father had a military in mind. My mother, though, was creative. Living on a place like Okinawa, she learned how to make something out of nothing. I mean, she could make costumes out of burlap rice sacks, and
Wow.
She was very handy and creative. So I learned a lot of that from her, making things by hand and making do with what little we had there.
Isn't that really wonderful? I can remember going to my mother when we had our first Christmas as husband and wife, and we couldn't afford any tree ornaments, and she took scraps of things that she had in her sewing box, old pieces of, burlap and what have you, cotton and this kind of thing, and made these really cute ornaments for us. And I'll always remember that. And I think that's so true. Mother is the invention of necessity or something like that, design.
Exactly.
Exactly.
She-
Any funny stories about the projects that you worked on? Any homes that you remember or designers that you remember?
I do remember being caught in a situation where I was with Robert K. Lewis in Chicago in January, and it was something like 20 degrees below zero. And we were working in a building that was under construction. We were creating 3 model rooms. And the furniture had been sent up ahead, and the painters, but we were riding on the outside skiff elevator. There was no internal elevator in the building. So we're out there going 30 stories above Chicago in the cold, carrying chintz pillows and buckets of flowers, and just hoping things weren't, the orchids weren't going to blow off. And it was pretty hysterical because we had to share it with the construction workers who had wheelbarrows full of cement, and they were on the way. They were on a mission, and we were just styling. So it was that was just something we had to deal with. And there's the lost luggage. You'll arrive on location, and once my suitcase was lost for 5 days, and I was in Nepal doing a story with Susan Bescher on the rug making industry, and.
How was that?
And it was quite an experience. It was all set up through a carpet company named Tufinkian. And but I had no luggage, nothing to wear except my airplane outfit. So the only thing I could buy was in the hotel gift shop, which was a folk costume. That's all they sold.
Oh, how interesting.
And, so I walked around in this little embroidered outfit looking like a tourist who was trying to insinuate myself into the culture. But really, that's all they sold were just, native costumes.
Do you still have it?
No, I think I gave it away as soon as I got home because I had to wear that.
Must have been a collector's item. Now, I have to ask you about the art of the pitch, because you are an expert in presenting a story idea and getting your editor to accept it.
That's right. I had to come up with ideas and explain why I thought it was right for the magazine. Different reasons, whether it was a timely incident or a designer of the moment or something that made sense for what the magazine was looking for. But I also had to take good scouting shots. So I had to go in with a wide-angle lens and photograph the rooms as though it were a double-page spread or a vertical page and then some details. So I had very explicit scouting shots because I was having to take photos, mail them across, or FedEx them across country.
In those days.
In those
yeah.
days, and then have a description of each picture and what it was all about. So I had to be very thorough and descriptive.
But you always have been. So did you get any no's, or were they always yeses?
I sometimes, sometimes when they said, no, it's not right for us, then my saddest moment was to go back and have to make the reject call and say, I'm really sorry, but it just isn't fitting with what they're looking for right now, and try not to hurt anyone's feelings, and then make suggestions where they might go to another type of magazine. And so I would try to still give life to a project
Right.
and give some other options.
And how was it working with a photographer? Because photographers need to express their viewpoint, but you knowing the magazine and your editor.
Well, a lot of the photographers, sometimes they were hired because they seemed to be the right personality or the right style for a particular job. But also, I kind of had to act as the art director and the liaison from the editor-in-chief. So I would try to work with the photographer and say, I know what you want to do, but here's what they're asking me to come back with, so let's work on this together. And it was usually a very happy compromise.
And this is where your diplomatic skills.
Exactly. You have to be very diplomatic and persuasive in a very careful way to please everyone. The bottom line was that if the magazine didn't like the pictures, they would either say reshoot or it's a reject.
Wow.
And that happened a few times, but not that often.
No, because
So-
you have quite a history of fabulous shoots. I mean, as I remember, and certainly your project in Hawaii with these historic homes was of great interest.
That was. And I actually made friends on that trip at one of the historic homes that I'm still in touch with today. And so again, friendships come from these assignments.
And do you remember the name of the home?
It was called Grove Farm in Kauai. It's an actual working farm with a beautiful farmhouse. And
Anyone
and I
who's
remember-
traveling there, is it still in existence?
as far as I know, it is.
And they
It
can
was.
access that through a website, or?
Yes, each island has one or two historic, like they're originally missionary homes, and I think they were pretty much they are available online. Back then, things weren't so available on the website, and we would have to write letters and get articles and clippings and send them around. But
Because many
they
of
exist.
those historic sites were missionary homes.
yes, and they're usually listed when someone goes to an island as a cultural experience, and not everyone wants to do that. They want to go
Right.
for the nightlife or the beach, but the historic homes are there, and they're run by preservation societies. So it's all about preserving the wonderful, rich history of Hawaii, and same thing in the United States. We have these preservation groups, the Los Angeles Conservancy and the Palm Springs Preservation, and
Can we talk about Palm Springs? Because you're very active in that.
I am, and I'd been sent on an assignment by Lou Gropp and Peggy Kennedy to go to Palm Springs and photograph the Richard Neutra Kaufman House. It was built in 1946, and it was one of the most famous houses.
That was made famous by Slim Aarons,
Yes,
right?
exactly, by Slim Aarons, and it is like the prize home of Palm Springs. And I bonded with the house sitter there, and we became friends. And he is now chairman of the board of Modernism Week, which is celebrating its 20th anniversary in 2025, and it's a 10-day. Not exactly a carnival, but a festival of sorts of education and preservation events, and it draws people from all around the world. Last year, the attendance was, I think, 130,000
Wow.
that just converge on Palm Springs for that 10 days. and it's full of activities and lectures. And the chairman's name is William Kopec, and his partner Mark Davis is the treasurer of modernism, but he also is the one who has expanded the lecture series so that it's basically, it can be like a semester of design school crammed into a week if you attend all the lectures. So he brings in architects and professionals from all around the world.
And that's usually done in the spring, or
It's in February.
in February?
Usually happens just about the last 2 weeks of February each year, and then a smaller version in October.
And anyone who's interested, they can access.
They can go on modernismweek.com.
And buy tickets. Do you have to pay?
You buy tickets. Everything's there are 350 events, and most of them are paid tickets. The revenue goes back to the city and to the preservation neighborhoods and buildings and committees to preserve the Palm Springs Valley. It's called the Coachella Valley.
Now, will they have they been successful in saving?
Very successful in saving the buildings that are, sometimes new owners will come in and just want the property of the land and tear down a masterpiece, a mid-century
Right.
masterpiece. So
And these
it's
are
happened.
mid-20th century masterpieces.
There's some treasures. There's some wonderful treasures there, and there's several. They have quite a few preservation groups, and I've become involved, and I go and I volunteer and help out and get to docent at some of the more visited homes.
Like Sunnylands?
Well, Sunnylands is part of it. You can buy tickets to visit Sunnylands during modernism or throughout the year.
The only
That's
reason
another
I
part.
mention it is that I am a graduate of the Annenberg School. And of
you
course,
are?
that was the Annenberg House. And it has a lot of history, American history.
Everyone, those tickets sell out first. They tickets go on sale in November, and usually the Sunnyland tickets are snapped up right away because they can only hold so many people at a time.
Well, the art collection alone. And of course,
Yes.
wasn't it designed by Billy Haynes?
Haynes, yes. And it's a perfect time capsule, and it's just been kept so well, pristinely kept up.
Wow.
So it's an excursion everyone likes to take, but you can do it other times of the year too, without.
For our listeners, Billy Haynes was a silent screen star and very prominent in California Hollywood history, but then became an interior designer. And some of the wonderful interiors that have been signed or captured on film are those that were designed by Billy. And just for those who are not familiar with the name, who are listening to us, my producer always says, make sure that you explain who these names are, because I'm getting on in years and my memory of old days.
But it's nice to name our forefathers in
That's right.
design, the ones
That's
who
right.
really set the pace and started an appreciation for fine design and fine good taste and good living.
Absolutely. I mean, some of the things that Elsie DeWolf, when she lived in California and had a home on Benedict Canyon, I believe it was, and I just remember driving by and imagining her when she had her place at Versailles, on the grounds of Versailles, and then moving to California. What a switch, what a change of atmosphere, but she managed to power through.
Well, California is the land of palm trees and convertibles and nice, a very open, friendly landscape. So
Well, I remember your first Christmas card, and it was that little bug car
My
that
little
you
Volkswagen
had, right?
convertible.
Parked in front of a house in the Mid-Wilshire area, I guess. And I just thought that was so clever. Here's a New York girl who was raised in Okinawa, but lived in Memphis. Now she's a California girl.
Exactly, and I had my Christmas. I had my Christmas tree in the back seat too. I mean, I totally styled it, and I got the tree like in October. I had to find one because I wanted the card ready for December.
Right.
So I made that happen.
Oh gosh! And today we're all considering maybe permanent trees, but I told my wife I'll go down before I do that. Now I'm considering it because they're all dressed with lights and just plug it in and there you got instant Christmas.
That's the easy way to go.
That's cheating.
But it's, it's convenient.
Well, I'm so glad that you have been a guest. Now, before we close, I want to hear from you because you've gotten a great experience in the world of design. What inspires you?
What mostly inspires me is travel, to be able to travel and see things that are different than your usual surroundings. And I've traveled my whole life, and I think I'm always up for seeing something new. And I always say, if you point me towards an airplane, I'm thrilled because I know it's going to take me somewhere.
But you do quite a bit of traveling still.
I do.
And that's what's great about your penthouse. You just lock the door and away you go.
Exactly. And I'm always looking for, when I go to a new city, like I figure out ahead of time what it is that I want to see, not necessarily what's in the tourist guidebook.
Oh.
And I'll look up modernist structures, or I do a lot of work before I go so I can maximize my time.
Well, do you have advice for anyone that likes to travel and are going to cities they've never been before?
Well, I usually Google with like modernist. I'll just put in like modernist structures in Budapest or Prague, and then I'll find out like what's Bauhaus or Art Deco or other other more recent centuries than ancient.
Right.
So it's there. It's surprising. They'll pop up with some good advice.
Do you do cruises or?
I have. And I'm about to do a Danube River cruise. I've never done one.
I've heard it's great.
And I have a friend who's going to be an architectural spokesperson as we go along. She'll be speaking about the architecture, so that's why I'm doing that.
That's excellent. So how do you keep your love for travel going? Because travel's not easy anymore.
It's not, but it's not. I mean, it takes a lot of planning, and
You're an organized kind of person.
I am. I'm very organized, and I work out my flights, and I work out I want it to be the way I want it to be. I don't want surprises.
But you travel with friends.
Yes, I
How
do.
do you avoid conflicts?
Oh, we're all in it just to have fun. We're all in it together. And a lot of times with groups, we're traveling with like-minded groups, like the Fellows of the Garden Conservancy, or with the Modernism Week gang. We've traveled to Cuba, to Mexico City, to Sarasota, New Canaan together, and we just have a blast picking out buildings and details.
Because my wife and I don't like to travel in groups, and the only people that we've ever traveled with were obviously family members or my wife's sister, older sister, and her husband, because we have like interests. But we came up with this formula because many times we just like to travel by ourselves of do what you want, and we'll see you at cocktails at 6 o'clock and dinner.
That's good.
And that always works.
And I do I do break away from the group sometimes, but we'll reconvene. At the end, but,
Well, that's
but
great.
it all works out.
Well, I am so glad that you did this. I know you're a busy lady. I know when I approached you, you wondered why, because you're such a wealth of knowledge and you have such a wonderful, varied background. So thank you so much, Beverly, for being with us.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you.